Wow. Well, with the eyes of the entire world on him, King Charles gave his very first address as king just a little bit ago. Take a look.
I speak to you today with feelings of profound sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother. Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived, a promise with destiny kept, and she is mourned most deeply in her passing. That promise of lifelong service I renew to you all today.
Earlier today, King Charles and his wife Camilla, now known as the Queen Consort, returned to Buckingham Palace. He then went out and greeted, even comforted, all the thousands of people who had turned out to pay their respects. Now, Britain has begun a period of national mourning with long lines, as you can see, of people waiting to lay flowers for the Queen at Buckingham Palace. In Hyde Park in central London earlier today, there was this 96-gun salute to the Queen. President Biden ordered flags flown at half-staff across the nation today, while all across the globe, tributes are pouring in for the Queen. The president and his wife visited the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., where he delivered flowers and signed a condolence book. Now, believe it or not, there is an elaborate plan in place for this 10-day period of mourning and transition in England. It is called Operation London Bridge, which includes the royal funeral and the ascension of a new monarch. To help break it all down for us, once again, we are so honored to have you here. Stefanie Jones is joining us. She is our British insider. First and foremost, before you jump in, I just want to ask you, because when you came in yesterday, you were in shock.
Yes.
Has it hit you? Has it hit your family members? Are they there? What are you feeling?
Honestly, so I was saying to everyone a little earlier, I was so discombobulated. I actually think I was just like spewing out like things that I knew, but I was just still completely unaware of how much it actually had impacted me and other people too. I think we all were in a moment of just like, what has just happened? So thank you so much for your condolences. And obviously we've had a little bit of time for this news to sink in. It doesn't make it any easier at all. It's still just as heartbreaking, but here we are and we have to move forward with the times, which is what Queen Elizabeth would have wanted, absolutely.
Steph, I don't know if this has sunk in yet, but what did you think of the King's speech?
How weird.
Oh, it was
to
fantastic.
hear that though.
Yeah.
King.
Oh yeah, King Charles. Honestly, I was so proud of him as a British citizen. His address to the nation and the world, his first official piece to us, was beautiful. He was so well spoken. We definitely sensed some emotion towards the end of his speech, and he addressed some very important and key matters that I know the rest of the world would have wanted him to. So I thought it was absolutely beautiful. It's a sign of things to come. I'm so proud of him.
Well, speaking of things to come, we have the royal funeral coming up. What can we expect? Because I'm sure it's not only going to be draped in tradition, but pomp and circumstance. So please talk to us about that.
So, like you said, it's going to be a real celebration of Queen Elizabeth's life, and rightly so. I'm sure that there will be obviously a lot of mourning and deep sorrow, but we need to remember and celebrate such an iconic and special woman. So right now, her body is in a coffin up in Scotland at a palace where it will be for a couple of days, and there will be a service there. She will then be transferred down to London, to Westminster Abbey, where the public as well will be able to go and mourn her and celebrate her at her coffin for about 4 days' time. Wow. Then she will be drawn by a gun carriage through a procession through London streets, and eventually her ceremony will be televised as well, and then she will be actually buried, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, at King George VI Memorial Chapel alongside her mother and father, and Prince Philip, her king, will be then, he is being, I feel bad saying excavated, but he's being excavated, and then he will be reburied next to his wife, because that couldn't happen until she had passed. So I think that's going to be very beautiful, very special, and I'm so glad that they can all finally be together, resting in power, absolutely.
The first thing I thought when I heard about the Queen was she gets to be with Philip again, because they had such a long-standing marriage. I got to ask you this. A lot of us have a hard time understanding the length of time, but Queen Elizabeth was the longest serving British monarch in history. Yes. She ascended to the throne in 1952 when her father, King George, died. She was 25 years old. Imagine what you were doing at 25. Oh my God. All the things she saw in her life as Queen and all the changes over the past 70 years. How do you think she's handled it? Explain to us the breadth of her legacy.
And this is something that it's hard to wrap your head around, but when you say some of the things that have actually happened during like her lifetime and her being on the throne. So she was there working as a mechanic in World War II with her first Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, going to head with Hitler. Literally, imagine how different the world would have been if Hitler had have won and succeeded her. And she was leading not only England but most of the world in the World War at a time when women did not have the voice that we have now. We're still fighting for equal rights and in the middle of a huge global war. She was at the forefront of that. She was getting her hands dirty being a mechanic. She wasn't just sat on her throne. She was leading the way for women. She's so inspirational for
And just
us.
imagine what that image did to people that were, being bombarded, with bombs every night.
And
like how
yes. Yeah, she was part of it. She's been part of women's rights movements by being the face and the backbone of that. She was there when the first man landed on the moon. She was there when the Berlin Wall came down. She was there literally sitting alone when her husband had passed away, keeping to the rules of COVID. She didn't share the pew with anyone. She sat there alone with her mask on because she believes in honour, in dignity, in tradition. She wasn't like Boris Johnson off having parties in Parliament. She stuck to what was right, and that's what she did throughout her whole entire life.
That is so well said. I do need to get in this.
I just wanted to mention that she met all the Spice Girls at once as well.
Yes.
We're going to get to that later.
Good little levity there.
Yeah.
But we have to get this in because our viewers are asking. We got to talk about Harry and Meghan. So Prince Harry returned to London earlier today after trying to make it to the Queen's bedside in Scotland before she passed. You can see him comfort an airport worker by putting his hand around her. But again, we have our viewers asking about Meghan and why she did not accompany her husband to try and see the Queen before she died. So Steph, what do you know about why Meghan stayed behind in London? Is this tradition or does this cause...
Obviously, the world will be asking those questions. Do I think it's appropriate? Absolutely not. I think Harry and Meghan shouldn't even be discussed at this point. I actually think it's very disrespectful. We should be focusing on the Queen and her legacy. However, obviously, because people do want to know, Meghan wasn't the only member of the family that wasn't there. Kate herself was not there.
It's good to know.
So it wasn't some kind of snidey jab. There wasn't a bad reason behind it. Kate stayed behind looking after her children, and so did Meghan. So let's not pit them against each other. Let's not put Meghan down for not being there. This was a moment for the Queen to pass with Charles and Anne and her grandchildren. So let's not make it about anything else.
I love that. Thank you for clarifying, Steph. Coming up, we are continuing to remember Queen Elizabeth. And where do William and Harry stand in the royal line of succession? As we go to break, here's Queen Elizabeth II in her own words.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
I cannot lead you into battle. I do not give you laws or administer justice. But I can do something else. I can give you my heart.
But it is my hope that when judged by future generations, our sincerity, our willingness to take a lead, and our determination to do the right thing will stand the test of time.